Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this is just a quick review for the boxing last night in the States. Only a couple of fights in which I want to talk about, and I will start with David Benavidez versus David Lemieux. This fight obviously was at 168 for the WBC interim super middleweight title, and the fight basically went exactly as I thought it would. One-sided domination. I felt that Lemieux would last a couple rounds longer, to be honest, to maybe like the mid-rounds. But yeah, I mean, I was expecting Benavidez to really put a hurting on David Lemieux, and that's exactly what happened. Quite frankly, David Lemieux, number one, doesn't belong at 168, and number two, I just think he's taken too much punishment in his career. I think he's done right now, quite frankly. So yeah, I mean, listen, you can't really read too much into it, but when you're fighting a guy like Lemieux, who is past his best, who is fighting in the wrong weight class, you need to take care of him. You need to beat him in good fashion. And that's exactly what David Benavidez did. And you know, the beating really started from round one. And in round one, David Benavidez hurt David Lemieux towards the end of a round. I think it was initiated by a right hand, and then Benavidez basically jumped all over Lemieux as Lemieux was in the corner. Benavidez must have landed 5 left hooks in a row on David Lemieux. He nearly dropped him. He was rocking. He was unsteady. And the bell basically saved David Lemieux. At the start, the referee was going to wave it off, but he realised the round ended, so he let David Lemieux continue. In round two, there was more of the same from David Benavidez. Actually dropped David Lemieux in round two with a right hand, left hook / jab combination. It was the left hand that put Lemieux down. At this point in time, Lemieux's face was already showing the signs of damage. Round 3 was where this fight ended, and David Benavidez picked up where he left off, landing some nice 1-2s, and it was a left hook right hand combination that really hurt David Lemieux in the third round, and eventually Lemieux's corner just jumped in to wave it off. They threw in the towel, and I think that was the right decision. I mean, Lemieux barely had any success in this fight. It was one-sided. But you know, I mean, this was to be expected in my opinion. The only thing I'm somewhat surprised about, I thought Lemieux would go a little bit longer, but apart from that, I was expecting a one-sided fight, and that's what we got. But you know, from Benavidez's perspective, you know, he needs to do his job, and he did that against Lemieux. He won this fight decisively, so congrats to Benavidez, and now it's on to the next one. In his post-fight interview, he was saying he wants to fight the likes of Canelo, Caleb Plant, Jamal Charlo, and I would be very happy to see any one of those fights. Quite frankly, I think he beats the absolute dog shit out of Caleb Plant. There's no doubt in my mind that Benavidez wins that fight. I'm sure he does, and I'm pretty certain he'll dominate Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant might make it tricky early on, but eventually, you know, the pressure's going to bust pipes, and I can't see Caleb Plant staying away from Benavidez for 12 rounds. I just can't see that happening. I would like to see it though still. Caleb Plant, of course, a former world champion. That would make sense. I still would like to see the Jamal Charlo fight. I know there's been a lot of revisionist history in regards to Charlo and Benavidez. A lot of people are doing that damage control for Jamal Charlo, saying he doesn't have to fight him because he's 168. Well, Jamal Charlo started this talk by calling out Benavidez, and then he went back on his word, so I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask for Benavidez versus Jamal Charlo. I think that would be a great fight. Once again, I would favour Benavidez, but I think Charlo's a harder fight than Caleb Plant, and obviously Canelo would be a very good fight. So, you know, Benavidez, man, I mean, he's saying all the right things. He fights in a style in which I find entertaining. I like how he speaks. I think he carries himself quite humbly, but at the same time, he's got that edge to him. So I want to see Benavidez get these big fights next. You know, I think he's ready for these sort of fights. But also in America, it was a top-ranked card headlined by Janibek Alimkhanuly versus Danny Dignam. Now, this was for the middleweight, WBO middleweight title. Of course, right now, Demetrius Andrade is the WBO middleweight champion, but he's talking about going to 168. He was supposed to fight Zach Parker for the interim at 168. However, that fight fell through due to Andrade becoming injured. So no idea what's happening at middleweight with the WBO, but Janibek Alimkhanuly keeps on winning. He knocked out Danny Dignam in the second round to win the WBO interim title at middleweight. And again, this was a one-sided fight from start to finish. I had seen Danny Dignam fight previously to this, and you know, I never rated Danny Dignam. I was expecting Janibek to win this fight easily, and that's exactly what he did. And once again, when you fight a low-level opponent, this is exactly how you're supposed to deal with them, in a quick, swift and brutal manner. No fucking around, and that's exactly how Janibek dealt with Danny Dignam. You know, first round right away, Janibek realised that Danny Dignam had nothing to offer. Janibek fighting out of that southpaw stance. Primarily, Janibek is a counter-puncher who can be aggressive, and in this fight he was forcing the issue. He was the guy coming forwards, touching Danny Dignam with the jab and following through with his straight left hand and overhand left. Danny Dignam had no answer for those shots. He was upright, he was square on, his guard was far too porous, and, you know, Janibek was able to tag him at will, and he was walking onto big shots from very early on. And honestly, you could really tell from the opening bell that it was just a matter of time before Janibek got rid of Danny Dignam. And you could tell that from the opening round. About 30-45 seconds into round 1, Janibek dropped Danny Dignam with a 5-punch combination. The most damaging shots in that combo was a 1-2 jab, a straight left hand. Danny Dignam went down. And yeah, I mean, he never adjusted. He was pulling back with his chin in the air. Far too easy to catch. And yeah, I mean, it was target practice for Janibek Alimkhanuly. I mean, let's be real. He had harder sparring for this fight than the actual fight itself. Once again, in round 2, Janibek comes out very purposeful, very aggressive. He's probing with his southpaw lead and coming through with his straight left hand. Once again, finding the target with great regularity. And he was starting to hurt Danny Dignam in round 2, caught him and hurt him with a couple of left hands. And towards the end of the round, Janibek landed 2 straight left hands, which buzzed Danny Dignam. Danny Dignam then dipped, and then Janibek Alimkhanuly landed a left uppercut, which rendered Danny Dignam completely unconscious. So yeah, I mean, second round destruction by Janibek Alimkhanuly. Easy work, it's what I expected. I gave Danny Dignam no chance whatsoever in this fight. I didn't really rate Danny Dignam going in. And yeah, again, this is what you're supposed to do when you fight an overmatched guy. So Janibek is now the WBO interim champion. He's in line for the WBO middleweight title, whether that is against Andrade or whether Andrade vacates. So he's in a great position right now. And ultimately, it's now down to Demetrius Andrade. Either fight Janibek or vacate. It's just that simple. For whatever reason, the Andrade fans don't like talking about Janibek, you know, because it doesn't fit the narrative that nobody wants to fight Demetrius Andrade, which is completely untrue. Andrade's turned down numerous fights in his career, such as Jamel Charlo back in 2013-2014. He poured cold water on the Erislandy Lara fight, and here we are now showing no interest in fighting a world-class mandatory in Janibek Alimkhanuly. Perfectly fine fighting the likes of Jason Quigley and who's the other dude? I forgot his name. He was that bad. Luke Keeler. He's perfectly fine fighting those guys, picking up easy paydays, moaning about not getting any big fights. But when a top fighter, when a dangerous fighter wants the fight, that's when you get cold feet. Funny that, but you know, these fake channels, these fake Twitter accounts will continue with a narrative that Andrade is ducked. He's so hard done by. It is what it is. What can you say? What can you say? But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Janibek. And by the way, I'm not even saying that Janibek beats Andrade. All I'm saying is he's a dangerous opponent, right? Andrade definitely has a chance in that fight, so I don't know why he's not taking it. But regardless, we'll see what happens. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.